This meeting is being recorded.
Okay.
Well, good evening and welcome to our mid-year meeting. Who would have ever thought that we could do something like this 5 years ago? Anyway, thanks to technology, we are able to meet and have some educational presentations given and visit with each other a little bit too. Our theme for today is food security, and do you know where that came from? Actually, today we'll be looking at international food security a little bit too with Anne's presentation. In 2022, I believe, there was 4 or 5 of us on the national board that got together to work on a resolution for ACWW, and this is what we came up with a lot of help from the ACWW staff, food security. So we were tied into it for that. And then as I began my term as president-elect, I appointed a committee to look at some things for FCE. What do we need to do to keep ourselves vital and to keep ourselves growing? And the committee came up with a issues and analysis presentation that we did last year at conference that was quite detailed. Took us a while to go through everything, but 40 or so people that were there went through a lot of topics and a lot of discussion and came up with food security as a topic for FCE to work on for a 3-year period. So this is what we're doing. It fits in with ACWW. It also fits in with a lot of what's going on in the world today. And actually, I'm going to tell you, my little town is now a food desert because our grocery store burned. So we are learning about a food desert in our town. Not so much for myself, because I live 20 miles from town and I'm used to driving to the grocery store. But if you lived in Dighton, there's no place to buy fresh fruit or vegetables. You can still get milk and eggs and canned goods at our Dollar General. So we are exploring some different things that we can do to help people out. So we're hitting this. Yeah, the point was to have something that every FCE member could be involved in at the local and county, state level. So we're going to be hitting it with education, which is what we've been doing this year, and we did some last year as far as educating about what is food security, what does it involve. Action would be some projects, and I don't know that we have any planned right now, but I think that will come out of what we're doing. And then our leadership is public policy, and we discovered very quickly that it's very difficult to have something happen if you don't know what you're going to be doing public policy wise. So Margaret, the public policy person, is working on some public policy things for us to catch up with. That's about what we're going to be doing today. I want to give you just a little bit of conference information. Conference will be July 24th and 28th at the Holiday Inn in Erlanger, Kentucky. The theme is Empowering Volunteers, Treasure the Present. There's information on the website. The registration form is there. The hotel information is there. So go to the website to find out how to get registered. Awards, there are awards. It's on the resource library page for your state to fill out. There are a couple of awards that units could fill out. I think there's an award that an individual can fill out with a brochure contest. So find something that your state or your unit can do and fill those out and get them sent in April 15th. And then I'm going to give a plug to Keeper's Corner. That has been one of our fundraisers that has been pretty successful for us. If you have not sent in a box with some items in it, they do not have to be new items. They can be like new, something you've made, something you've purchased and just don't want anymore. But that fundraiser is working pretty good for us. We're getting, I don't know, $200 to $400 a month on that. So we think that that's worthwhile to keep doing. If you have any questions about it, those instructions are on the website too. So on to our meeting today. So I'm going to introduce Peggy Martins. She's the Vice President of Public Policy, Vice President of Program, and has worked on the hearth fires with the coordinators. So she will introduce them to give a little blurb about the hearth fires they'll be presenting at a conference this summer. So Peggy, I'll let you do that.
Okay. The first one is what is the American Red Cross? Connie was here this afternoon, but she isn't here now, so I will read what her little blurb is. Learn about Clara Barton, who at age 59 founded the American Red Cross in 1881. This lesson honors a woman who was ahead of her times, a great humanitarian known around the world. It describes the driving forces behind the international organization and encourages us to serve others in need. Be it as emergency volunteers, healthcare professionals, or as blood donors who freely give the ultimate gift of blood to help those in need. So that should be very interesting lesson for all of us. Then, Linda, are you on tonight?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Linda Hanberry, you can give us a little blurb on the lesson you're working on or worked on.
Thank you. I will be spilling beans on the beans, and Peggy has already been instrumental in my program with her computer skills and her knowledge of placement and periods and capitals and all that. And I just want to emphasize that beans are very important to all of us. You know the little song, Beans, Beans, the musical food. We'll be talking about that. In fact, there's a lot of information. I was so surprised being from the South how much I did not know about beans. Then we'll go into beans by another name. It's very complicated. Beans are categorized into different categories. Then we'll go into the history of beans, where they came from, where they started, and the magic of beans, their benefits and there's cautions. Beans are considered a whole food, nutritional, contains antioxidants, and they're very affordable for food sustainability. Excellent source of protein for vegetarians, so the beans can replace meat. Beans combined with grains become a complete food containing all the necessary nutrients. But there's a caution with beans, which I had no idea. Uncooked beans are toxic. Who would ever think of eating an uncooked bean? But it's very dangerous. It has to be cooked at a certain temperature for it not to be toxic. We will also have a quiz and some recipes. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Linda. And Pamela, are you on? You were planning on it, I know. I didn't see you. Don't hear you. So Pamela McIntyre Albaro is doing a hearth fire on what does food security look like. Do you know what food security is? How to measure your family's ability to obtain food, or what a food desert is? Food security and its opposite, food insecurity, are quickly becoming issues facing the world today. They have been the subject of studies, world summits, the World Economic Assistance. Food security affects people of all ages and walks of life in every aspect of their daily lives, including health and well-being. So that title is, What Does Food Security Look Like?
And then Peggy is going to, she has a presentation to do here today that for entertainment a little bit, but just as information too on bologna.
Yeah, it's kind of entertainment, and we wanted to do something that wasn't so serious. And when I mentioned the word bologna at a board meeting, several of them laughed, and so we thought, okay, let's just go with this. And we're doing food security, so that's another reason why there's a hard fire on beans. And bologna is a meat that you can either love it or hate it. And I got an email after this afternoon's presentation, and the lady said she didn't think she had ever eaten it. So, you know, we're all in different groups, but it's an American staple. And for many people, it's just like Campbell's chicken noodle soup, SpaghettiOs, or the bright blue box of Kraft macaroni and cheese. We remember them from our childhood, and like when I was a child, I know it was a non-negotiable part of the summer and also of the school year, because in the summertime we had it for lunch. We were farmers, so we had lunch at 4 in the afternoon during harvest time especially, and we took a sack lunch to school. And so we many times had bologna sandwiches in our school lunch. The research that I did saying up that for your school lunches, if you didn't have a thermos full of mystery leftovers, you could have a tuna sandwich, which was the worst. You could have a plain American cheese sandwich, also the worst. You could have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, was just plain boring. Or you could dig into your brown paper sack and be surprised and delighted because there was a bologna and American cheese sandwich, and life was all good. So it's a low-cost meat, but the roots of bologna are very fancy. In fact, bologna was the great-great-grandson of the Italians mortadella. Mortadella, much like bologna, is made from finely ground pork meat, and it is cured and cooked in a low-temperature oven before it's packaged. The main difference between the two meats is that mortadella also contains added fat or lard, and it has, and that's why you get the marbling effect when you see that. And there's also a lot of spices in mortadella, which there are not in bologna. The grocery stores have it packaged, you know, when they started packaging, easy to buy cold cuts and so forth. And so it's been a favorite among many. So when you purchase lunch meat, when you look at ham, you know it's ham. When you look at beef, you know it's beef. But when you look at bologna, you really don't know what it is. I've often wondered why they don't make bologna square, because bread is square. And so why don't they make bologna square? I haven't found the answer to that. But bologna comes from Bologna, Italy. So why do we pronounce it like phony or pepperoni? They think it's a mystery. They think it's a travel agent booking you a ticket to Bologna. He'd never say Bologna, Italy. But the word evolved to describe nonsense. I don't know whether all of you in the parts of the country that you live in, but I know here in Kansas, we say, oh, you're full of baloney. A lot of times to an adult or to a child. And so it came over here from Italy with the immigrants. And in 1970, then you definitely knew how to spell bologna because of the little commercial on television. Kids started taking lunches to school in the early 1900s, but most kids came home for lunch in the 1900s, but by the 20s and 30s, the school lunch programs had started. In fact, in 1946, President Truman signed the National School Lunch Act, And it was also low cost or free lunches. So the Oscar Mayer Wiener song is a jingle that was created in 1962 by Richard Trenlage, a Chicago ad man. He entered a contest that was held by the Oscar Mayer Company to advertise their hot dogs. And I suppose many of you know that little tune was, "Oh, I'd love to be an Oscar Mayer Wiener. That is what I'd truly like to be. Because if I were an Oscar Mayer Wiener, everyone would be in love with me." Then in 1973, they came out with a new jingle, and it was "My Baloney Has a First Name, It's OSCAR. My Baloney Has a Second Name, It's MAYER. Oh, I love to eat it every day, and if you ask me, I'll say, because Oscar Mayer has a way with BOLOGNA." And so even for people like me that don't consider myself a good speller, I just remembered that little jingle, and that always helped. The jingle was an instant hit, and it was reached an estimated 49 million families in 19 countries. It was also featured on a Hallmark card, and it became ubiquitous in American popular culture. If you want to go on YouTube, you can see that little jingle sung by the little boy that did it way back in 1973. Kind of fun to relive that. So now, who ate bologna sandwiches? Well, schools in the South served bologna cups, which were fried bologna slices molded into cups. Then they put a scoop of mashed potatoes inside it, topped it with cheese, and that's what they served at schools. The migrant farm worker program, that was 1942 to 64, also they fed bologna to the Mexican workers. And it was a staple item for many households. So some grew to resent bologna, and they disliked its taste or its texture. In fact, I was saying earlier that between the Bar S brand and the Oscar Mayer brand, there's even a difference in taste. My taste prefer the cheaper one, which is the Bar S. And some people don't like it because it reminds them of how poor they were, because they had to eat a lot of bologna because it was cheap. And they had it every day in their lunches, so that might be another reason they were tired of it. But the sandwich is now it's kind of old-fashioned, because nowadays it seems like they've leaned more toward salads or noodle bowls in their lunches. Even like I'm thinking of workers that take a lunch to work. So chefs across the country are indeed adding bologna to their menus. Last October, when I was at the Kansas conference, went to a restaurant where my daughter and her husband like to eat, and they had a bologna sandwich on the menu, which I had never seen before anywhere that I had eaten. So that was a real surprise to me. Did somebody want to say something? Okay. So that casing that's around it is not really edible, because it can be made from synthetic material, which are made from collagen, plastic, or other fibrous materials. So it's not really fit to eat. I don't know that a person could actually chew it up anyway. As far as cancer concerns, some people are concerned about whether it causes cancer, and we should all be limiting our amount of intake on processed foods of any kind. And another reason for the deli meats or meats, sandwich meats, is that they usually have a lot of salt and fat in them. In fact, one slice of bologna contains 7.9 grams of fat and 302 milligrams of sodium. That's about 13% of the entire daily requirements of sodium. So that made me kind of interested in looking at the difference between these two, between the Oscar Mayer and the Bar S. And the Oscar Mayer, these were both 1 pound packages. They were both thick slices. The Oscar Mayer contained chicken, pork, and beef. The Bar S contained chicken and pork. The calories, well, first of all, I might say the servings in the Oscar Mayer was 11 servings per container. And these had no skin on them. That was just a container full of meat. But the Bar S had the little red skin on them. But the Bar S had 8 servings. The Oscar Mayer had 11 servings, so you can keep that in mind. The total fat on both was listed at 11 grams. The cholesterol for the Oscar Mayer was 30 milligrams. The cholesterol for the Bar S was 55 milligrams. The sodium might surprise you. You probably expect that it's going to be high. For the Oscar Mayer, 360. For the Bar S, 640. Almost double. The carbs was the same at 2. And the protein was 4 for the Oscar Mayer and 5 for the Bar S. And I don't know why that little bit of difference, but people have used this bologna as punishment. So in the Dakota County Jail, sounds pretty awful because bologna is all you get. The jail serves 2 turkey bologna sandwiches and a small side dish of fruit per inmate, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, even on Christmas. In Alabama, a sheriff was locked up after feeding the inmates in his jail grits and paper-thin bologna sandwiches. Wardens in Alabama were allowed or are allowed to pocket money left over after providing food for the inmates with meals. And so, you know, the cheaper they can make the meals, the more money goes into their pockets. In Alaska, 2 Muslim inmates were fed bologna sandwiches during Ramadan, and they later sued for having their civil rights violated. Imagine that, people in jail suing for their civil rights. And then the infamous Maricopa County Sheriff Joe
Arpaio. Arpaio, yes.
He not only makes his inmates wear pink socks and underwear, which you've probably heard about, but he also has boasted about serving them rotten food, including green bologna. Most prisons allow access to vending machines and canteens so they can get their meager mealtime offerings supplemented by that. But anyway, that I would think that should help deter people from committing crimes if they know they might be having to eat bologna that much and wearing pink underwear and socks. So people also use this as a weapon. They also can decorate their pets. They put them on their pets, which I don't know whether that's supposed to try and make the pet do a trick by flipping it off, you know, and catching it in their mouth or what. But anyway, and they throw it at their friends. Some people urinated on it. In fact, there was a man in Albuquerque. He was leaving bags of bologna and white bread that smelled suspiciously like urine on the doorknobs of the residents in one of the neighborhoods. And then for a prank, they put bologna on cars thinking that that would remove the paint. So they did a test and they put bologna on one car for 24 hours and they couldn't see any damage. So that prank didn't work. Restaurants, like I said before about the one I went to, are serving bologna sandwiches, and also some of the presidents have gotten involved. And President Bush was said to order bologna sandwiches with a side order of Doritos when he stayed at the Waldorf Astoria in New York. Barbara Bush handed out bologna sandwiches at a soup kitchen in Washington. President Obama served bologna sandwiches at a DC nonprofit that served low-income families. And in 1992, First Lady Barbara Bush and the president's wife of Russia, they made dozens of bologna and cheese sandwiches at a Washington, D.C. soup kitchen. So you see, even presidents get involved with this. Now, Chubb bolognas can be bought sometimes if you have a meat market or a grocery store that has a meat counter. At our local Dillon stores, they usually have a Chubb, and I had never paid much attention to how much it weighed, but I looked the other day and it weighed 32 ounces. So that would be like 2 of these, and I got 2 of the Bar S the other day for $3. Of course, that was on sale, but still. This was $3, and a Chubb with the same amount of weight is $7 and something. Depends on what you want to do with that meat, because if you're going to make fried bologna, you probably will want to buy the Chubb, because then you can slice it in half-inch thick slices, or larger if you want to. You have to score them before you fry them, because otherwise they will curl up, and then you can make those cups with the mashed potatoes in it and cheese like they did at school. The ground bologna is, you can make that into what's called bologna salad. And I have a friend that lives in North Dakota that says, well, I told her we have ground bologna sandwiches, and I said, they call it ham salad. And she said, well, we have ham salad. So I said, so what kind of meat do you use in your ham salad? And she said, well, ham, like duh, and I'm saying, well, we call it ham salad, but we use ground bologna. So I take the bologna and use this kind of an old-fashioned grinder. You hook it onto a cabinet down here and crank it, put your meat up in here. I use the finest disc. It comes with two more sizes, but I like the smallest one. The recipe that I saw online for a bologna salad, they chopped it up, and this is the size that they came up with, which looks to me like it's been cut probably with a knife. There's also eggs in it, and they recommend eating it either on bread or on crackers. It has sweet pickle relish, boiled eggs, salad dressing, black pepper, and salt to taste in that. Now, when I was growing up, my mom always put eggs in our ground bologna. This is what mine looks like with, I reduced the relish amount by half, and I think before I actually eat it, I'm going to add probably another tablespoon of Miracle Whip to it, because I like mine I like it to stick together a little more. And then, if you want to be fancy and not make a cheese ball when you're going someplace or when you're having a party, you can make a bologna cake. And that looks like that. It's made with cream cheese and Worcestershire sauce, grated onion, and then you serve it on Ritz crackers. You can decorate it with that cheese whiz that comes in a can, and it looks just exactly like a cake when you're seeing it. So now bologna sandwiches are suddenly the hippest thing since sliced bread again. I went to a New Year's Eve party two New Year's Eves ago, and they had fried bologna and they had white bread. And you know, years and years ago, you had Wonder Bread, which I love Wonder Bread. I haven't bought, this is the first loaf I've probably bought in 15 years because I tried to eat more healthy, like getting wheat bread, which I don't really like as well. But anyway, so they had fried bologna at this party, and they had coleslaw that you could put on it. And I suppose they probably had mustard, which I don't eat, and I didn't have one. I had other stuff they had, but this here article suggested that you toast the bread and then put cheese on it too, so it would look similar to that. So there's all kinds of different ways to eat bologna, and we can still call it bologna because we live in the U.S. and even though we know how to spell it correctly, we can still go ahead and call it what we want to, I guess, and say to people, you're full of baloney. It's nicer than some of the other things we could say to them, probably. That's all I have on that, unless there's some questions.
Thank you, Peggy. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you want any of that information, I'm sure Peggy has it available.
Yes. I have a Word document.
Yeah, Scott, between Peggy and Scott, we could get it to you. Margaret Mai is the Vice President of Public Policy. I'm going to let her introduce the two coordinators that are working on FCL presentations.
Okay, the first one is Kristen Walker, and she will be working with Pamela McIntyre Albaro. And since Kristen is not feeling too well, I'm going to read what she has as what they're doing. And it's called Food Security. What can I do to help? Now, this is a leadership program, FCL. As members of National FCE, we strive to help our communities locally and globally. In the FCL lesson, What Can I Do to Help? Attendees will learn the current facts of food insecurity, the effects on the family, and ways to improve their future outlook. The second one is by Patricia Woods with help from Linda Hanberry, and I'm going to give it to Patricia and let her introduce it.
Hi, everybody. Finesse plus civility equals leadership is the name of the FCL lesson. Leadership development is a fundamental objective for the continuation of any organization. The purpose of the lesson, finesse plus civility equals leadership, is to understand who a leader is, how to become a better leader, and what skills to practice and sharpen to become a better leader. Leadership is not just holding a position. It is not even a particular job or office. Leadership is an awareness of the needs of a group or organization. Leadership includes attitude, people skills, and communication skills. Doing unto others as you would have others do unto you plays an important role in becoming a better leader. With an understanding of etiquette rules and manners and a willingness to practice what you preach, you can become a confident, polished leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and now Margaret has a FCL presentation for us on public policy and how we can maybe implement some of the things that will come up with the food security, how to make a difference in our communities and nation, the world. So it's yours, Margaret.
All right, let's see if I can bring it up. Come on.
No,
No?
I'm sorry. My granddaughter asked me something.
Oh, okay. Can everybody see the PowerPoint?
No.
No,
No. Okay,
You're not sharing it yet.
I hit share.
Okay, and then you got to go click on your little screen once you get there. We can't.
Okay, well, it wouldn't work. Hang on. Let me get back out. Oh, I know what I did. Okay. I gotta go pull it all back up. This is ridiculous, Scott.
Okay.
Now I lost my. Okay.
Well, let me know if you need me to bring it up.
Probably because I can't seem to. I can't get my bar to come up. So I hit share screen.
Yeah, I'm ready whenever you are.
Okay. You might as well do it. So we don't hang this up for very long. All right. Each and every one of us lives in the United States of America. Most of us refer to the US when talking about government that we're a democracy. And if you'll remember the Pledge of Allegiance, we are not a democracy. We are a republic. So here's the difference. In democracy, the people meet and exercise the government in person. In a democracy, laws are made directly by the voting majority. So in a democracy, everyone is there and participates. In a republic, the government is delegated to a smaller number of citizens elected by the rest. In a republic, they assemble and administer it by their representatives and agents. And that's how we function in our government. We elect people to represent us and make decisions. In a pure democracy, the rights of the minority are largely unprotected because, again, it's majority rule. In a republic, the laws are made by representatives chosen by the people and must comply with a constitution or other documents that are set to govern that specifically protects the rights of the minority from the will of the majority. So in a republic, minority has a better say than in a democracy or a pure democracy, because then they don't really get a say in anything. We often talk about public policy, but how many of us really know what it is? There are often misconceptions about what public policy is and what it entails. So here's some definitions about public policy. So as a noun, it's the principles, often unwritten, on which social laws are based. So it's not always written down, but it's a given. For a law, it's the principle that injury to the public good is a basis for denying the legality of a contract or other transition. Policy. Policy is made in response to some sort of issue or a problem that requires attention. So we have all kinds of things that go on that require attention, and sometimes we can solve it immediately, but not always. But policy is usually something that's going to take more than a real quick solution. Again, with policy, what the government chooses to do, which is actuality, or not to do, which is implied about a particular issue or problem. Members of FCE are all parts of the citizenry of the United States. As good citizens, we should be involved in how our representatives work, whether they're elected or appointed or take over. We need to know how they make their decisions. All too often, we think we will not be heard or that we don't know enough, or, is often the case, we're intimidated by the whole process, because it can be. The process of effective public policy can be a bit daunting in its ways to go. However, we are all capable of joining in to make a difference in what we believe. And that's the biggie, is we can join together. We don't have to be just one person out there. One question that is often asked when talking about public policy is, how does something that happens in the privacy of my own home become the business of the public? It's a good question. Has anybody ever had to answer that question? I did, and I'll tell you what it was here in a little bit. A private problem becomes a social or public issue when it no longer affects just the individual and those immediately around that individual. It is when it begins to have an effect on the wider public or society as a whole. Can anybody give me an example of where something maybe was private home, but it spilled out and became part of the public?
A criminal offense.
A criminal offense. That's a good one. Any others?
Burning trash.
Burning trash. Who would have thought? Correct? I burned it in the privacy of my own yard. Well, the wind blew. I was on a jury, and after the trial was over, I was asked that exact question, and I answered it. This man had done porn, and he had gummed up his brand new computer with all the stuff that he had put on it, and he went to a fellow coworker, and when this man opened up the computer where his young daughters were, because he was in his living room, he said, I don't have a dedicated office at home. His daughters were just quickly exposed to what this man had on his computer. And he was on trial for pornography. So yeah, that's, people want to know, well, he did it in the privacy of his own home? No, it spilled out and ended up affecting other people. Public policy is an institutionalized proposal or a decided set of elements like laws, regulations, guidelines, and actions to solve or address relevant and real world problems guided by a conception. So there are 5 characteristics to public policy. Public policy consists of courses of action rather than mere decisions. It's actually action, not just me deciding I'm going to do something. It's showing that I am actually going to do it. I am doing it, not going to, I am doing it. Policy is goal-oriented action. I have an outcome that I want to have. Even if it's a broad-based outcome, there is a goal to it. Policy is what government does, not what it says it's going to do or it intends to do. It's actually action, what they're actually doing to resolve a problem. Policy is based upon law and is authoritative. So they can pass laws or rules, whatever they want to call them, in order to achieve the goal of solving a problem. And public policy is a result of political process. And it doesn't mean political in terms of I'm for this party or that party or, you know, whatever. It is just part of working together to set a goal and make that goal come true. It's part of it. You call it political because you've got to learn to get along with other people. To be engaged citizens, knowledgeable citizens, and have a significant impact on issues that affect us, we've got to have some things that go on. Critical thinking. Recognize and disregard arguments founded on attacks, appeals to authority, or other fallacies. And I got to say, I hope all the rest of you agree. I get tired of politicians, people running for office, always bad-mouthing their opponents. We have to get ourselves beyond that and listen to what they say they're actually going to do. So you don't want to listen to things that are not true. And it's kind of hard in the world today because everybody's got an opinion or says they know the truth. The second one is communication skills. We got to learn to solve problems with multiple potential solutions because there's never one solution to a problem. Communicate why you prefer one or two over the others using your facts, and include how to address any downsides or negativities. We always got to look at somebody who's going to disagree with us or come up with other facts. Whose facts went out? Who did that? Who did the survey? Who gathered those facts? Then we got to go to long-term thinking. How is this going to affect people long-term? How many times has a decision made, well, we have a problem and this is what we're going to do, and they do it right now, and they don't think about what's going to happen, keeping that in place long-term. So we've got to be long-term in our thinking. Not all changes are felt immediately. It can take years for that goal, that policy to actually take full effect of everybody the way we intended it. The next one is ability to work with a diverse group of people or groups of people. Discuss ideas with people outside your circle where we're comfy. We know kind of what everybody else is going to think or what they're going to say. We've got to get beyond that and talk to other people and hear what their thoughts are, because you might hear something you never thought about. How is it going to affect them? Oh, I never thought about that. It's a good thought. Let's see if we can incorporate that. How do they feel about what's going on? How will the changes impact them? Can you work together? Don't get bogged down in what your differences are. You're there and you start with the fact that you think that this issue is a problem that we have to resolve. That's where you start. That's your base. And the last one is willingness to compromise. All of us who have been married know that marriage is a compromise. And working with a group of people is the same thing. You've got to learn to compromise. We can't always have it our own way, darn. But that's the way life is. For changes to be made for all, we need to compromise and to work for the best of all, not just what's best for me or best for you and me, what's best for everyone around us. Public policy addresses social, moral, and economic values, and these are the things that tie a society into a cohesive working system, and that they will change over time. What we did as public policy when we first formed in 1936 doesn't work today. We have better communication abilities today. Not that we take advantage of them the way we maybe should, but we have that ability to do things in a different manner. Things change over time. There's one resource that isn't there, or there's a new resource that's available. So we have to make changes as we go along. There's a life cycle to any issue. So here they are. Concerns and awareness that things are not as we want. Food security is definitely one that ought to be on everybody's plates and everybody's minds, because it certainly is not the way it should be. I mean, Judy's grocery store burning down is not something we could have prevented, likely. But how is it going to get resolved with the people that live? I know what it's like in Western Kansas. There's a lot of space between towns, a lot of miles. So how's that going to get resolved? It's got to be more than just her small community that resolves this issue. Issue identification. To do that, we got to have surveys, studies, public forums, resource consultants, and reading. And don't say FCE can't do any of that. I'm going to go back to when we had a whole big thing on children and television. You go back, if you remember, in the late 90s, we did a whole thing on children and television. And we worked with Ed Palmer And we went out to, if I remember rightly, fourth grade, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we went to fourth grades and we asked them questions about what they watched on TV. Did mom and dad give them permission to watch that? How did they feel when they watched the various programs? So we do know how to go out and do surveys. Not saying it's easy, but we can do that. Conflict. Not everyone's going to agree with us on that the issue is really an issue or that they have a completely different idea on how to resolve it. So there's going to be some conflict and we have to be prepared for that. And the one thing you don't do is you don't get angry and you don't call names and you don't get personal with it. We have to discuss it in a very polite manner, if you will. Doesn't mean we can't be passionate about it, but we don't need to be mean and ugly about it either. All right, rank priorities. Is there a group consensus? Is there a danger of delay? Are financial and time resources available to address the issue? And that's a biggie, is we do have to look at what money and time it's going to take. And everybody's got time crunches and money is an issue. So what can we do? We have to rank our priorities. Analyze the issue. Who's involved? What's their interest in this? And what is the status of the issue? So we've got to keep going through because things change quickly sometimes. What was not an issue yesterday in food security in my area might be today if we have a flood or an earthquake, or we're in Iceland and the volcano erupts and we all have to evacuate, which is now going on. We have to consider alternative solutions and consequences. There is always a consequence to every action we take. We have to think about that. Everything we do, as minor as it might be, has a consequence, and it can be it's oftentimes a good consequence or something so minor it doesn't even register, but there is always a consequence. List advantages and disadvantages of each alternative solution. Analyze each alternative, conduct hearings, identify any limiting factors and how they might be overcome. So we got to look at all of it. Make a choice. Determine your position and your rationale. You got to look at what you're going to say and make sure that you're in agreement with everybody that you're working with. This is the kind of the wording we're going to use. This is how we're going to present it so that you present a united front. Then we have to develop a plan of action. What changes should take place? What strategies to use? Who can help? Who's going to oppose you? Again, that negative side that we're going to have to deal with because somebody is always going to oppose. What resources do you have? Then we get down to what are the tasks that have to be done starting now and going through the process, however long it's going to take to reach a goal. What needs to be done? Make assignments to all those different things that we need to get done. Set deadlines and follow up, and don't follow up at the end, follow up as you go along, double checking that people are on their timeline. We're going to implement the plan next. Will your group act individually or as a group? Communicate your position to decision makers, encourage other groups to support your position. And that may be all they are. They may be the numbers that come and say, we support what they're saying. Communicate your position to media. How many of you have ever done a television show? Anyone?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, Martha? Who else has done television?
Martha.
Okay. I have two. I can remember getting up at 4 a.m. to go do a 5 a.m. farm show on whatever FCE was doing. Fun times getting up that early. How about radio? How many of you been on radio? I'm hoping that our Southwest FCE group me likely, since it's here in Yuma, will be able to do something on a radio broadcast this fall. So we'll see how that works out. I've never done radio, could be interesting.
Margaret, I've done radio.
Okay.
Denise,
All right. Sounds good. How did you feel about it? Was it nerve-wracking?
no, it wasn't. It was for FCE, and it was
Okay.
in Hawaii, and it was a local DJ, and he was,
Yeah.
kind of one of my convention agents with me, but
Okay.
for kind of support and everything.
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
nice.
it was okay.
Okay. I'm hoping that's how it's going to go. All right. Keep everyone informed on the current status and status of the issue. That's something you need to do as you go along. Keep everybody up to date. We've reached, we've reached item number 2, or we've gotten this and going, or this is getting ready to go, whatever it is. And then the last one you have to do is evaluate your efforts. And you don't do this just at the end of the project, at the end of the whatever it is your goal is. You've got to do it throughout the entire time of reaching that goal, because if you don't, things fall through the cracks and something isn't going to get done. So you got to evaluate, if something isn't working, what can you do differently? How can you do it in a different manner? Talk to other people, get another group, whatever it might be. So how do you become involved? How do we become involved in public policy issues, decisions, or changes? Well, the first thing, and FCE is doing a good job of this, educate yourself and the other people around you about common issues or problems. We're not the only people that need to be educated. Find out who local, state, and national representatives are. And I had planned to have a list to everybody of who their like members of Congress are and how to contact them, but that's all getting ready to change this fall and will take place in January when they all change and everything. From the morning session, I know about the League of Women Voters, but I could not find any way to contact them, but she gave us a contact online. Communicate with those officials. Don't be afraid, even by yourself, to go and write a letter. We're going to put a letter, kind of a generic letter together that you can follow when we get ready to contact our local, state, and national representatives on food security. We'll get a kind of a generic letter so we're all on the same page, basically saying the same thing. Participate. That means going to those meetings. And I know it can be very boring, and you don't have to go to each and every one of them. I'm thinking of city council. There's county governments as well. There's all kinds of different boards and committees within your community at the state level as well. So participate in those, attend those meetings. Even if the only thing you're going to do is listen to what is being said. Next one is to work to identify others who would be willing to help you support a common good. Might help FCE when we're talking about food security. What other groups out there might be willing to sit down with us and work with us? Think about that. Who in your local community would be willing to sit down and work with you? This week in Yuma, they are having it's all 5 days, it's all day long, and they're having like Ag Week. We've just at the very, very end right now of finishing up all of your winter veggies. They mostly come from Yuma. And I looked at all the speakers. I really wish I could go, but I am leaving on Wednesday. And but could we sit down with some of those people? I have a list of all those names, and I'm hoping we can get with some of those people and find out how we might work together. Be informed about what you will be asked to vote on and ask questions. And I'm going to go to FCE conference. We come in, we have an agenda. And yes, I know that the state president is your delegate and votes, but you still have an opportunity to get up and ask questions, and there are no stupid questions. So if you don't understand the bylaw or why it's going to be changed, or what the proposed budget is and why it's sitting at this amount, or anything else, you have the right to get up and be heard. So don't be afraid to ask questions. There are no stupid questions. Please get up. So it doesn't matter where you are, be sure you ask questions. Do not give up, because this solving food security is not going to be done in a year or 2 or 3. We don't know what Mother Nature has in store for us, and I'm going to blame her for some of this. At the 2023 National FC Conference, as Judy had mentioned, they went through a really long, difficult process to decide what we as National FCE should focus on for a minimum of a 3-year project. And that decision finally was resolved into food security. And that will help support FCE's accepted proposal. And then since it was accepted and passed, it's now a resolution, the ACWW triennial in Malaysia concerning food waste. And there's going to be a workshop at conference on food waste. So what can we do? How can we affect public policy on food security and or food waste? And I would like right now to ask you to share specific ideas on what we might be able to do. Any thoughts?
Sorry,
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. I want some responses. Does anybody have any ideas?
Well,
And what we
I'll speak up. We need to stop
Okay.
throwing away food that's still good just because it has a date on it that says it is best by or whatever it is. Because all it does is get what we do. We throw away good food, and all we do is pollute our landfills and everything else.
And you're going to do a workshop on that, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so he's going to do a workshop at conference this year.
This
Anyone
is Martha,
else?
this is
Yes,
Martha
Martha.
Crawford. I am doing that program that Scott's going to do at conference. I am presenting to our Ag Day on April the 2nd.
Marvelous. Marvelous. Okay, any other ideas what we can specifically do?
Our church has a relationship with the postal workers union and postal workers. And once a year, they go around and collect food
Yes.
in neighborhoods and bring them to our church. We go through them and shelve them for anybody in the community that is in need. Anything that's outdated, we give to one of our church members who runs a food bank for the really needy people in that community.
Okay,
And like Scott said, even though it says use by or sell by, we know from research that it's still good. So there are people
Okay.
that are getting to eat food that's still good that other people won't touch. So
right.
it is a process.
Sounds good. Anyone else? No?
Well, I have another group that we've just started with and hoping to eventually make them an FCE group. We're looking at women from 25 to 40 who want to learn things that they don't know And we've been meeting with them the last Saturday of the month, and we've had a great response already, and it's only been going for 2 months.
Marvelous.
To try to get them in on the front end as FCE would be too hard. We talked to our representative, and like I said, to those presidents that I contacted in Tennessee, we have to jump through hoops and barrels in order to try to form a new club. You have to do surveys and you have to do so much that it's too much of an obstacle. So I have presented that to someone within upper leadership to see what we could do. I believe it came out of the EEOC movement many years back. And hopefully I will get a turnaround saying that we don't have to go through such a lengthy process. So perhaps the way we're starting with these young women, after 4 or 5 months, we'll be able to talk about FCE and how FCE helps in all the arenas they're trying to learn.
Cool. That sounds good. Because the more members we have, the more likely we will be able to get something done. There's numbers do make a difference. We as an individual can, but we make a bigger difference if we can all work together. Anybody else?
Where I live at, they have blessing boxes in the small towns. They put, non-perishable foods in there that anybody can come and just take.
Okay.
We have those in this area, and my granddaughters were very excited about it. So we went to the store and purchased, it was during the summer, cases of water and things like that. And they got to put them in the blessing box. And within a couple days, everything was gone.
Right.
So there is
Yes.
a need, and that taught a 9-year-old and a 10-year-old what they need to do as well. So it's multi-age that we need to look at.
And it isn't real time consuming or anything else to go and do something like that. All right. Anyone else? Okay.
I think just sharing food so it doesn't go to waste. A good suggestion was I had a professional group and we had a meeting on Saturday, and we were feeding the public that came to this event. When we were done, we had food left over, and rather than just saying this is going to be bad in a few days, we tried to see how many members could take some and who we could share some with in the community, and who we could take something to who had been ill, and so that we distributed it so that it didn't end up just being in garbage because we had more than we could use. We also have a blessings, one of our churches, and they actually have freezers and refrigerators as well. And all the church groups and community members donate. And my habit is since I'm a oldest of lots and lots of children, and knowing how to budget well, when there's things on sale for a ridiculously low price that I would buy for my family, I buy more and take it there so that someone else less fortunate, can have some. There was a point in our time when we were first married that we actually reached out and got a little help in a few situations. And we don't forget that. So you give back as much as you can. So, and we have local help. Our scouts, our young people, our scouts work on collecting food and stuff too. So that's a fun thing for them. And
we have a resort called Renegade Mountain, and I guess we were coming home from last conference, there was a fire on the mountain and it destroyed several homes. And of course, our church sits at the foot of Renegade Mountain. So we fed all kinds of people. I made turkey for the Wednesday night kids and they canceled that. And then all the other people that had houses up there came and partook of the food, and they were very thankful. And then we give it, whatever's left, we gave them to take with them in containers. And it was a good relationship building program too.
Yes.
And we also on Tuesday nights have a recovery meeting. It's a Christian-based recovery meeting. And when it first started, we fed them every night, but it got to be out of hand because there's like 40 people. But every once in a while, we'll feed them on the spur of the moment. And they don't have the food. They appreciate, and we always have snacks there on Sunday. They'll come and take a bag full and load it, but that's okay, because they need it,
Right.
so.
Very good. I'm glad to hear all the things that you already are doing. And that maybe we can share all these ideas and think about things that we might do as well as in the public policy arena. Very
We're
good.
also teaching how to process food, all freezing, dehydrating, water bath,
Yes.
canning, and also how to grow it and how to share in meals. And, we have quite a few
Right.
programs going on in the different levels of FCE. We're very
Cool. We need to hear about those. Okay, we're going to move on. Oftentimes we are overwhelmed at the idea of having any influence at all on policy decisions. But there are just 8 easy things that we can do. And one of them is stay informed. Knowledge is power. It really, really is. Keep yourself updated on local, national, and global issues. Read reliable news sources, which could be hard to do, but we'll keep looking. Research studies and policy papers. There are a lot of different organizations that put out policy papers all the time. Just keep looking. You can Google a lot of things and they'll give you information from their different organizations. Understand the nuances of different policies, their implications, and the context in which they operated. Nuances are all those little tiny little things, the fine print that we need to be aware of. Engage with local government. That's probably where we're going to have a really good impact, is what we do locally. Attend town hall meetings was theirs. I would say city council, county government pieces or committees that have been established, and also to go to community events. I don't know about your community. Mine every so often has roundtable where you can go in at various times during the day. So if you can't go at one time, you can go at another time and sit down with, say, the city council members and really discuss something that's going on. And they get good ideas from those of us who attend those. Voice your opinion. Ask questions. Remember, there's no dumb question. And participate in discussions. Your input matters. Join an advocacy group. Find organizations that match your interest. Volunteer with these groups. Attend rallies and collaborate with them. Advocacy groups a lot of times they know how to use the media, both written, verbal, and social. So don't be afraid to collaborate with any of them. Write letters and petitions. How many of you have ever signed a petition or taken one around or like gone to the county fair to have people sign it?
I have.
Okay. I saw a couple of heads nod going, yes, I've done that.
Signed several petitions.
Yes, I've signed several petitions. It's a good thing to do. There are some online things that will come across. I will get a text, or sometimes it's on Facebook. Sign our petition. You've got to be real careful, only in that you might agree with what they want you to sign, but they're looking for information so they can send you requests for money or other things. So just a word of caution. Doesn't say I'm not saying you can't, because you could do that. All right. Network and collaborate. Connect with policymakers, researchers, and activists. What can you do? Attend conferences, workshops, and seminars. Don't be afraid to go do that. Collaborate on research projects. We have done that in the past, or on policy proposals. Your unique perspective really does matter. We're all individual. How we look at something, how we think it's going to impact us is all different. Run for office. There you go. And I'm not talking just a political office like the mayor or a city council. Run for to be chairman of a committee or volunteer to be chairman. A lot of times you put your name in the hat and they elect you. FCE is looking for people to run for office. Might be a good place to start if you've never done that. Might be a school board, might be the state legislature. All are excellent starting points. Campaign, engage with the voters and articulate your vision for change. Don't worry about who's running against you. Just stick to what you things about you and what you're doing, what you envision for the future. Educate others. Here's where FCE does a really good job. Most workshops, it doesn't have to be the FCE member actually doing the work of the standing up and doing a workshop. We can have others come in to host a webinar or community sessions on policy topics. Empower others with knowledge. Encourage critical thinking and informed decision making. And the last one is to leverage social media. Use platforms like X, which is formerly Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn to share information, raise awareness, and connect with policymakers. National FCE is on Facebook, and I think Bonnie has us connected now to Instagram. Are we connected yet, Bonnie? Oh, she might have stepped out.
No, she's
right here. She just can't find the button.
Oh, okay.
I think I've had one or two go on Instagram because I've tried to link it so that every time I post on the national FCE page, it automatically goes to Instagram. But I'm
Okay.
not sure. So I don't check Instagram very often, so I'm not sure it's on there.
If I were going to check Instagram, what do I do to make you somebody I follow? Would it be under NAFCE?
No, it'll be under National Association for Family and Community Education.
The whole thing.
I'm sure of it, Margaret. It'll be just like the page, not the group.
Okay.
Okay.
I will go look and see.
Okay.
I do go to Instagram a lot of times.
Oh, all right.
Okay. So we gotta do that too. We really gotta be far more. I'm on LinkedIn. It started out as more of a I'm a public speaker or I'm looking for a job and I've got these qualifications, and it's become far more a lot more information out there on various people, and you post your own materials. You don't post about another organization or whatever. This is like LinkedIn is under my name. Engage in respectful dialogue and amplify important messages. So the best part of that sentence is the respectful part. Again, we need to stay out of throwing mud on another person or another organization. So we got to be respectful about what we do. Every single voice matters. By actively participating in the process, you contribute to the shaping of policies and everything that is impacted by that policy. Okay. Each state should investigate where food waste and food security, how those two things look like in your own state. How does it look like? Have you asked people? Have you looked at people and said, what can we do? What's thrown away? There are states where they are allowed to go into restaurants when there's leftover food, not stuff out of the trash, but stuff, plate got sent back, or we filled too many, or we've got leftover, whatever. And they can take it to usually a homeless shelter or whatever. Others have banned that. mostly for health reasons, is what we've been told. But what is there? Is there a law in place to give leftover foods from restaurants to homeless shelters or to others? What laws are in place locally and state level about protecting our food sources? If tomorrow we were to become like California and have long-term flooding, because they've been having rain upon rain and now snow, so the mountains, part of the Sierra Madre Mountains were covered in 100 inches of snow. And that's a lot of snow. And now they're going to have snow melt. You've got other places that have had drought for a very long time. I know up in the Texas Panhandle area, they've had fire recently, and truckers are bringing down donated hay to help feed the cattle, because that hay's gone. Once that ground burns, there's nothing left. Kansas had the same thing. So what are our governments ready for that? Earthquakes are an issue. Mother Nature likes to throw stuff at us. Hurricanes, tornadoes, hail, whatever it might be. Is our local government ready for a major issue? They're having to evacuate parts of Iceland as of yesterday or the day before because another volcano has gone up. So they've had to evacuate. You think about Hawaii and their volcanoes. So what can we do? Don't think we don't have any. We got one off the coast of Washington that they're telling me is going off in the next several days. We'll see. Do we as individuals know what we should do to ensure our personal food security? If we would start a major outbreak of XYZ disease tomorrow and we can't go to the store, do we know how we're going to put food on the table for ourselves to eat? Even if you're one person, I have 4 cats I got to feed, but how do I feed myself? Can I do that for a year? Probably not. So what am I going to do for food? How am I going to get it? So we have to have our own personal plan for how we can do that. Can we do better about not wasting so much food? How many times have you found that thing in the back of your refrigerator that you meant to have as a leftover and now it's, green with mold or brown or whatever the case may be? Do we as individuals know what we should do to ensure our personal food security? Do we? All information gathered that you're going to go out and do can be compiled and put into a document so that members can contact their representatives and senators. If you could show your local, get all your facts and figures from your local sources, and you could put it in a document and then say all of XYZ state, and it goes to all of your senators and all of your representatives at all levels, it makes an even bigger impact. And so we've got to be doing some of this stuff here. State information can be used by the state's members to contact state and local legislators, and it can go up from there. Don't forget to send information to National FCE, because we also are going to see about putting together a letter writing campaign or email, because letters aren't quite as kosher as they used to be. So we're going to put something kind of generic together that we can use each person, each individual, or each FCE group. We're going to be doing that. We're going to be working on that. Keep National FCE informed about what you're doing. Keep track. This is the fun part. Keep track of the number of people, the hours, the money, all that fun stuff, all those facts and figures. Martha will like it. She's the treasurer. Keep track of all of that stuff. And if you need help, please go to the FCE website and find any of the board members and ask them for help. If they can't help you, they will find somebody who can. We've got a lot of hearth fires that can help and FCL materials, and there'll be more after conference this year to help you educate and do other things. Information on contacting the FCE board and other state presidents, that the state boards are also listed there. So maybe you want to work with a state close to you on all of that. Okay, so if you want to pull up the next slide, Scott. This is our National Food Security poster. It's a vertical banner. It will be, this belongs to National, and it will be be at the National Conference this year. So Scott came up with the idea of the umbrella because food security is the overall umbrella of food banks, food dates, utilization of food, and this is only a partial list of what comes under food security. So this is Judy posing in front of it when she was here in Arizona last year for the Southwest FCE conference, because we had it made here in Yuma. So, all right. National FCE has been involved in many times over the years in changing public policy. Who started the school food program? We did. Who worked on mobile libraries and did that? We did. Public health services. We lobbied and got Congress to put a county health department in every county in every state. And then we worked with those county health departments on immunization programs. So just a few, tiny few of the things that we've done. We actually sat down, literally sat down with ABC, NBC, CBS, and others to really push for them to put a ranking, a rating on every television program. So parents could look at it and know that, you know, what was it? We know if we go to the movies, we've got PG and we've got R and we've got all of that. But everything, excuse me, all those others are also rated. And we were part of making that a policy to do. We had the effect of really changing the world around us. We've done it before and we can do it again. Gather the information that's needed. That's how we got to start, is getting the information. We can go through the process of determining how and what we will communicate, who we will work with, and with our agenda and for getting this done. So think about groups we can, both locally and nationally, that we could sit down with and work with on food security. But first things first, we got to gather all that information. We can and will do this. We all, no matter where on earth we live, we need food security. I don't care where you live. You've got to have food security. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. That gives us lots of stuff to think about. I'm going to introduce Bonnie Teeples right now. She has some things she wants to share as area ACWW president and also for FCE, our legacy fund. So Bonnie.
Thank you. So adding on to or in concert with what Margaret's talking about with food security and the lessons that you'll be receiving at conference, I have, as the area president, adopted food security as a 3-year program. So one of the things that we concentrated on in this last year was food deserts, learning what they are, what we can do to mitigate them. This coming year, beginning in May, we will be working on food waste. And towards the end of, the end of April, I will be doing a session like this for not only FCE members, but all area people in the area that are ACWW members or belong to an ACWW society. And that will be dealing with food waste. I just attended a conference, and one of their presenters just had a wealth of information that really complements what I already have put together. So I'm really pleased that they are also working on it. So now to the Legacy Fund. Several years ago, I was serving as the National FCE president, and Bob Hannon, who is an FCE member from Arizona, came to me with the idea of setting up a fund that could help save National FCE for the future. It took a while to get the details worked out, but the fund has been in existence since 2014. Now, as a committee and working with the executive committee at that time, we come up with some values and a vision for this legacy fund. And part of the values are that we believe that every person can make a difference. Every FCE person can make a difference, regardless of what you're working on, whether it be food security or trying to save National FCE for the future. We believe in investing in our organization because it's been an inspiration for many individuals, families, and communities. And we believe that supporting our members is the work of the organization, and the work the organization performs will affect positive change in the lives of our members, their families, and their communities, just as FCE has for how many years? Tell me what year we were actually formed as an organization. Who can tell me?
I know 6 kids in Oregon that can tell you.
1936.
1936, correct. That's when we were formally recognized as an organization. Our vision for this committee, we desire to secure the National Association for Family and Community Education for generations to come. The goal is to build the legacy, which is what the fund is, a fund that will stabilize National FCE fiscally and in time assist in participating states through grants awarded by the national organization. Hopefully, the legacy will continue to build as we continue our path of life in FCE. It's important that our members know that this fund will eventually be able to give National FCE some relief from rising costs and declining membership and an ever decreasing income. Any size donation is welcome and appreciated. The Legacy Fund will also accept gifts in honor or memory of members, relatives, or friends. These gift donations will be deposited into the Legacy Fund, and your gift donation will reflect the name of the person you name as the honoree. This is not to be confused with the Alumni Honor Fund. The fund has been slowly growing, but we have not had the donations in the last several years that the committee had hoped would be forthcoming. When the fund was originally set up, the Legacy Committee, in consultation with the National Board, set up guidelines for the use of the fund. These guidelines give information on what the fund can be used for and how much we can take out of the interest only or the dividends each year. It should be noted that we cannot touch the principal of the fund. As chair of that committee, I'd like to take the opportunity to let everyone know that the fund is still in existence. It is still a viable way to help National FCE, and it is always in need of donations. The committee would like to extend a plea to you as National FCE members to consider donating to the legacy. And even though we're in the process of filing taxes right now, you can still make a donation this year to help out with your taxes next year. So don't forget, National FCE is a 501c3, therefore we are tax deductible. So Scott, would you like to put that form up if you have it available?
Okay, so this is the national website. And can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, there's a couple of ways to get there. You can go to the resource library, but you can also go to the quick links. And go down to the quick links right here. Then it is click on the legacy, and there's the information on it. There are the forms to to donate to it. There is a brochure that you can print off, and then it's got all of those who have donated. And you can see the current amount that I have as of April 2023. And I just need to get an update from Martha on that. And that is what the call is, the principal right there that time. So any questions? It's on the website.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bonnie. So our main speaker tonight, I'm pleased to introduce, is Ann Adams. She's a member in Kansas. She belongs to a FCE not too far from where I live, and I had the opportunity to hear her speak on another topic last fall and visited with her. And she shared with me some information about her son working with women farmers in Africa. And it really does tie in with our food security. It just will give us a more global view of some of the issues that are facing everyone with this food security thing. So I would like to introduce Ann at this time and let her give her presentation.
All right, I got a reminder I needed to
There you
unmute
go.
myself. Okay, thank you very much, Judy. Thank you for the invitation to speak this evening. I will have to confess that I had never considered traveling to Africa. It wasn't on my list of places I just had to go to. But my son was different. He joined the Peace Corps right out of college. And even when he was done with the Peace Corps, he wasn't quite done with Africa. So in October of 2015, I traveled to Bamako, Mali to visit him with his new family, specifically a month-old baby that I just had to see. So it was my first visit to a developing country. I stayed 6 weeks. That was only possible because my daughter-in-law was a very tolerant young woman. And I did do a little babysitting. It was the dry season. I chose that purposely because I didn't want to deal with quite so many mosquitoes. But Mali in the dry season is it's very dry. It's very hot, and there's also a wind that comes down from the Sahara called the Harmattan. So rather uncomfortable at times, but that's not bad, okay? I grew up in Kansas. I know what heat is, okay? I spoke no French. That was a mistake. In retrospect, I do wish I had prepared myself better for the experience. I made all the wrong assumptions, and I didn't ask enough questions. So it took me a long time to figure out what was going on. But now, after 3 more trips to West Africa, I have to say that I really could enjoy visiting Mali again now. It's a wonderful place with, in many aspects, beautiful music, lovely fabrics and colors everywhere, and really very warm and welcoming people. Sadly, that is not really possible for Westerners anymore. It's highly, we're very much discouraged from going to Mali anymore because of the civil unrest that has been rampant there since 2012. Anyway, thank you in advance for letting me share this with you. It was a lifetime experience for me, and I'm always happy to talk about it. While I visited them in 2015 and prepared this PowerPoint at that time afterwards, I did update everything for this presentation today. So to the best of my knowledge, and I will give you my sources on the last slide, everything is as up to date as I could make it. So I will now start sharing the PowerPoint. After that, after the PowerPoint, there'll be a short video because this company that my son works for, it's called MyAgro, and they have a really unique approach to helping smallholder farmers be able to afford seed and fertilizer. So, optimize, I got them. 1, 2, and share, and what am I sharing? I'm sharing the wrong thing. Sorry, Scott. There it is. Okay. All right. Okay. When I went to Mali, I was expecting to find scenes like these. Tuaregs here, dressed in blue, riding camels. Fulani, the herdsmen who work the Sahel. Dogon tribe that have the incredible dances and costumes. The Bamra people. It is true that you find all of them in Mali, but and 10 different peoples, in fact, and more than 10 different languages spoken there. But tribal differences do get lost in the city. The more famous parts of the country were off limits due to unrest. So I found out there was not going to be a day trip to Timbuktu to see one of the earliest universities established in Africa, or go to the cliff dwellings of the Dogon people in Banjagara. There's not going to be any easy access to the parts of Mali famed in Europe in the 14th and 16th centuries, when Mali was a magical land that Europeans were just sure was made of gold. So I explored Mali as I found it. We're going to begin by touching on some of the problems that this modern nation faces, both in urban and rural areas. And while the emphasis of this presentation is the problem of food insecurity, that problem is intertwined with many, many others. The fact is that if you address food insecurity, then other solutions to other problems become possible too. And then I'm going to turn, in the second part of my presentation, I'm going to turn to what was for me a highlight of the trip. Excuse me. When I traveled south from Bamako to a village that was enrolling in a farmer's assistance program with MyAgro. At the conclusion of the PowerPoint, then I'm going to take you to a video. It's a clip, because I think the best thing is for me to let the CEO and founder of MyAgro describe the program to you. This video was done in 2018 when she received the prestigious School Award for achievements in of transformational social change. Okay, we start with the land itself. What is Mali today is roughly twice the size of Texas. In the north, it's part of the Sahara Desert. In the middle, you find the Sahel, which is a slightly more vegetative. It gets a little bit more rain occasionally during the rainy seasons, but it's still quite dry. And then there's the southern area where there is more lush vegetation, and down in this area you can actually almost get to what we would think of as a jungle. Studies of the land have shown that in prehistoric times, the desert was much smaller and man could live farther to the north. About 7,000 years ago, the desert started spreading southward, pushing all the humans with it. And there were urban areas along the Niger River as early as 300 BC. The dominant people in modern Mali are the Bamra. Their original territory is shown in the small map here in yellow, so you can see it's international today. Their language is the official language of Mali, and it is spoken in neighboring parts of French West Africa. One of the few factors the uniting modern Mali today is Islam, which arrived in the area in AD 900 as a part of the Trans-Saharan trade route. Although initially the trend to move to the south was caused by desertification, today's urbanization of the south has several causes and also effects. Along this line from east to west, you find a destabilized rural area. Most of the displaced persons here have taken to the cities farther south or in other countries to find a safer life and perhaps also materially better life. Even when I visited in 2015, only the areas south and southeast of Bamako were considered safe for foreigners, for Westerners. Population of Mali is 21.3 million, and it's expected to double by 2035. Taking a look just briefly at more recent events, in 1884 at the Berlin Conference, France gained 1/3 of the entire African continent and called it French West Africa. Basically that. In 1960, Mali gained independence from France, and this was supposed to be a democracy, but it quickly devolved into a dictatorship until 1991. This era of democracy was short-lived. Civil war broke out when the Tuaregs, those were the people that live up north here in this area, the Tuaregs and militant jihadis from the north, some of the countries like Algeria or Mauritania, began attacking the south in 2012. And despite all efforts of French and UN peacekeeping forces, there is still no peace in Mali. The French have now pulled out, and the Mali military took over the country in 2021, which has its own problems then for the people of Mali, because many countries who helped support Mali in the past have pulled out their support because of the military coup. The capital of Mali is Bamako, along the Niger River. It's also the country's center of commerce. Its growth rate is explained in part by its location in the south, where there's a little bit more rain, and its relative safety and economic stability. You are going to find more police presence in Bamako than in other parts of the country. So now keep in mind the images from the first slide that depicted my expectations as we explore Bamako on the ground. This is what I found. Urban areas have more traffic, so more smog and stench and noise and tensions. Motorcycles are ubiquitous. They're used to transport merchandise, cattle, seriously, cattle. I saw one bound up on the back of a motorcycle once being transported to market. Families of 4 and 5. I once saw a family of 5 on a motorcycle, daddy in front, mama in the back, 3 kids squeezed in between. If you don't own a motorcycle, which is relatively cheap, and you want to be able to get around, there are taxis. They're usually yellow. They would not necessarily pass any inspection. They are cheap. Minivan buses are also available to catch a ride on. 42% of all Malians live below the poverty level. Many households out in the bush live on less than $2 a day. The real GDP per capita is $2,100. Okay, most industry in Mali is light, small scale, but it is 18% of the gross domestic product. Pottery is formed from the clay from the Niger River. Furniture is made from ever dwindling forests. Most of this is done with handwork, although there may have been some power tools here with some of these very straight sides, but certainly the carvings are all done by hand. Another very common manufacturing plant is steel fabrication. And during the day, you can usually hear somebody somewhere is pounding on the steel door, either to make it or to try to gain entry. Services make up 40% of the GDP. Here's a roadside filling station. I have to admire the entrepreneurial spirit of the Malians in Bamako and other places too. Here you see a row of this is gasoline in recycled palm oil bottles. And I guess if you happen to have the right tire, that would be helpful. But of course, they do have Western style filling stations found along the major highways. But here you can get a liter of gas and visit the convenience store and back. Gas, by the way, is imported from Nigeria or Burkina Faso, one of their neighboring countries. Major roads are lined on both sides with shops offering goods, that anything you might need for travel, bags, snacks, especially near the Oberlin bus depots. Okay. The markets are overwhelming, especially on Fridays and Saturdays. There are fresh vegetables and fruits. There are raw meats, mostly fowl. There's mutton, beef, fish. All of these things have to be sterilized in a mild bleach solution before consumption. Here you will also find fabric shops and tailors and heaps of discarded Western clothing, which only ruin the business for local tailors and fabric shops. Along city streets, you'll often find a few permanent businesses, such as this one belonging to Helena. Her vegetable stand around the corner from my son's home was really just a hole in the wall for which she paid rent, but it was clean and neat, and she spoke French, and so we were able to communicate a little bit. I found out that the owners of shops such as these pay nearly half of their profits to the government in taxes. And yet, the banking system is underdeveloped, chronic currency shortage, there's a lot of public debt. In order, you will often, if you go shopping, you might end up with some coins, but you might also get some of your change just in candy, because coins are even harder to find than, or even more scarce than the bills. This smallest one here, smallest bill, 500 sefa, used to be $1, but today $1 is worth 600 sefa, so that makes us worth about 80 cents. And that will be mentioned again later in my talk. Large bills are difficult to use except when paying rent, for example, or buying a car. No one has change to give you. Most business transactions, including paying for electricity or internet use, these are done by phone using orange money or electronically. As of 2021, 34% of the population uses the internet, but I will tell you that is being done over their cell phones, not in any kind of broadband or fiber optic or anything like that. And so interestingly, for every 100 people in Mali, there are 100 cell phones in use. Obviously, some people have more than one. Private homes often show most clearly the signs of years of economic instability and insecurity. Many lots show outlines of walls, houses yet to be, waiting for concrete blocks to be formed, because that's the first step. You have to make your own bricks or find somebody to make them for you. Sometimes poorer families are found to squat in homes that are not finished. And so they don't pay rent. In exchange for living there, they provide kind of a guard for the lot. There'll be no plumbing or electricity here because you don't want to put anything like that in until you've got some security like windows and doors. But at least if you are squatting in a place like this, you have a roof over your head. As for utilities like sanitation, electricity, drinking water, I noted that there have been quite a few improvements since 2015. Now, 2/3 of all their electricity is actually produced by burning fossil fuels. And there are a lot of surges and brownouts and blackouts. So access to electricity, well, there's some, it's not reliable. Open sewage seems to not be as much a problem as it was 8 years ago. 86% of people, residents in urban areas do actually have access to improved sanitation. That would mean toilets and closed sanitation systems. And 99.9% of the urban population has access to improved drinking water. I still would not recommend drinking the water, or at least not without boiling it first. I particularly love this shot because it shows how on the backs of houses of the well-to-do, you would see lean-tos being set up for people to live in. And that was in 2015. I lived opposite a soccer field, a soccer complex. It was used for physical education during the week and used by men's clubs evening and weekend for soccer. Soccer is the sport in Mali, and becoming a star and being recruited by the West is a dream for young men. The reality, though, that most of them face is reflected in the statistics, where a relatively short period of formal education, 6 years for girls, 8 years for boys, is followed by a much longer period of unemployment for many. Literacy is also reflected here then. Females age 15, only 26% of them can read. There is no free public education in Mali. Parents pay by the month for a spot in a classroom, sometimes with 60 students per teacher, and that was in the first grade. In the city, a young unmarried woman can find work as a nanny or as a housekeeper. Privileged few are sent to business schools, such as this group here. In the country, young men can herd cattle or help in the fields, but in the city, they have to find work, such as porters at the markets or as delivery boys if they can get hold of a motorcycle. Their best bet is to find an apprenticeship in manufacturing or as a mechanic. This chart shows the distribution, the demographic, shows you how young this country is, and partially explains why they're predicting a doubling of the population in the next 11 years. A very large portion of the country's populace are in the childbearing age. Speaking of that, women married by age 15, 16% of all women are married by age 15, 54% by age 18. Men, however, are tend to marry later because they are expected to be able to support their wife. Life expectancy at birth is 62.8. I just wanted to have you contrast these two charts, because this is the United States demographic. You see it's much more balanced. So the South is more populated than the North. And in April of 2023, there are 375,000 people displaced. You have a low-income Saharan economy. You have partially caused by COVID and political instability, but also the weather, the climate change has something to do with it. You have limited humanitarian assistance because after 2021, when the military took over the government of the country, a number of Western nations blocked aid because they don't want to encourage military coups. Terrorism increased 38% in 2023. After the UN pulled out its peacekeeping forces, the military turned to Russia and the Wagner Group for assistance with some of their security problems, and that has led to more problems. We mentioned the extreme poverty of this country. It's 42% below the poverty level. Environmentally fragile, it is dust waiting to be blown away, almost. It has very high public debt, and now Mali and Burkina Faso, and I believe it's Niger is the third country, they are thinking of pulling out of ECOWAS, which is for Western Africa, about like the European Union is for Europe, and forming their own consortium, which will only lead to more problems for everyone. Specifically, though, it will mean more problems for rural areas too. So now moving to specifically rural problems. Of the three major exports of Mali, gold mining and cotton offer the most employment for rural women. They will leave all but their youngest children in the village with family and go to the gold mines for weeks at a time to earn precious little, but enough to keep children somewhat fed in hard times. For many families, women's earnings are the only source for school fees and books. Picking cotton is seasonal work, but also takes the women away from home for very hard labor and little to show for it. One thing women don't usually do is cattle herding. That's considered boys' work, truly cowboys, because they have to walk behind the cattle constantly as the cattle move on searching for forage. You see here their agricultural products, and agriculture does contribute 42% of the GDP, according to a 2017 estimate. So here you have a few statistics describing the lack of adequate food in Mali. 7% of the population is chronically undernourished. I did not ever see an obese person in Mali, ever. 1.25 million people faced acute food insecurity during the lean months from June to August in 2023. 42% of the GDP is agricultural, and only 5.6% of the land is arable. That's that southernmost region, and it is decreasing, because that was actually 6% when I looked at it in 2016. Irrigation is only possible if they dig wells, and wells require pumps, and pumps are not going to be available. This is a granary. And when I was there, you can barely see the outline, but it was relatively full of corn, which is good because I was there in October. So they shouldn't have eaten all of it by then. And this item I thought was very interesting. This is called a hoe. I think of it as a short-handled hoe. You use it by bending way over and just attacking the ground with the strength of your forearms. I wondered, why on earth would they want to clear fields with something like this? Wouldn't a shovel be better? And then it occurred to me that, well, in order to use a shovel properly, you really need to have different kind of shoes than just sandals or flip-flops. So this is probably the best thing for them under the circumstances. A few more statistics about the, I hate to call them utilities. Only 18% in the rural areas have access to electricity, and that's of course got to be done with powered by a generator, which is going to take fossil fuel, which has to be imported and paid for. 76% of rural population has access to improved water sources, and 45% have access to improved sanitation. In this picture right here, this building, that is an outhouse. I know because I used it. And when it came out, the children were all standing around. Most common diseases, most of the usual common diseases in developing countries are there. The most frequent one is malaria. There have been attempts to promote the use of mosquito nets, but usually this is only the well-to-do who use them. This young boy, when I looked at him. He wasn't hanging out with the other children quite as much. And although he's wearing long sleeve jacket, he's sweating it out. So I think he probably had it. So just some of the statistics here that are so shocking. 19% of children under 5 are underweight. The mortality rate of girls under age 5 is 108 per 1,000. Of boys, it's 120 per 1,000. The infant mortality rate is 59 out of 1,000. The maternal mortality rate is 44 out of 10,000. Things like eclampsia, this kind of the prenatal care is not what we have here in the West. There are, for the entire country, 13 physicians per 100,000 people. So of course, the majority of the physicians will work and will practice in the cities. The fertility rate then is 5.5 per woman, and the mean age of the mother at first birth is 19.2. When I read these statistics, I think no wonder every child's birthday is a cause for celebration. If you can get them to at least 5, then they've got a fighting chance. And your children in these societies, your children are your social security system. So you want them to survive. You would anyway, but it's very critical that they do. These pictures were all taken on that day when I got to go to the village of Bafaga for this enrollment day into the Farmers Support Program organized by MyAgro. The community leaders had brought everybody together, and I got to go with one of my son's co-workers. She explained to me that our being there as Westerners would lend gravitas to the entire occasion. And of course, I'm always happy to lend gravitas. When we arrived around 10 a.m., and here's the village off of a well-worn track, and it was worn. When we arrived there around 10 o'clock, the farmers had gathered in the village. I have no idea how long they've been there. They were all there. Men sitting on lawn chairs or boxes to the left, women sitting on their small little wooden stools to the right. Western dignitaries, myself included, were seated on lawn chairs beside the men. And you can see that by far the larger group was the women. But yet, when it came time to actually signing them up, the men had to be signed up first. So there were questions to be asked, decisions to be made, forms to be filled out, and the initial payment of at least 500 sefa, that little tiny bill that I showed you earlier, had to be paid. That's how much to get into the game. Lunchtime was approaching. School-age children were returning home. I could see the women getting restless. They were starting to drift away. And I asked my son's coworker if there was any way we could get some of those women before they had to go and fix lunch. And she said, no, we can't buck tradition. I really wanted to connect with them. So finally, I just left my chair and went over to sit with them. As soon as I got there, they graciously offered me one of their little tiny stools. I think you can see one down here at the bottom. And I mean, it's a tiny stool. I think a brick might be larger. Of course, I proceeded to flop on my back in the dirt, having missed the stool entirely. And there was just this shocked silence all around me. And then I let out a belly laugh, like we heard all over the village, I think. And then there were a few smiles and giggles, and it was all okay. And we were just women amongst ourselves. And then pretty soon the guys from MyAgro came over, and we could get down to getting some of them organized. So I may not have lent much gravitas, but I did provide some entertainment. Women are encouraged in Mali, and these are the best customers for MyAgro. They're encouraged to work in groups because they can help each other out with things like the clearing the land, planting, weeding, harvesting. The men were mostly interested in large crops such as corn or millet. These are basically cash crops. Women tended to be more interested in planting rice or peanuts or corn. And they get the seed and the fertilizer from MyAgro. And they also get technical advice on best farming practices. The reason they take these items, these are smaller, they can harvest them themselves, they can feed their families with them, and then if there's any excess, they can carry it to market themselves and get a little extra cash for things that the family needs, like the school fees for the children. MyAgro.org is the website for the country, for the organization. They pride themselves on participatory decision making, such as here. They do not decide things for the farmers. They give advice, they ask questions. The innovative item is the layaway, a scratch card and a cell phone, because cell phones are available. And they deliver just in time for planting. And that's what my son is working on now. He used to work out in the field, but now he is part of the group that makes sure that things get delivered just in time for planting. Here's a list of my sources. There may have been others along the way. I really wanted to bring you facts. I trimmed it down. I had way too many facts. So if those of you think I also still had too many facts, I'm sorry, but I did do my best to bring that down. I took this one right after I dusted myself out of the dirt, and she was still laughing. So it was a wonderful trip. I'm going to stop this and take you to instead this one. Oh, now first I'll show you this. This is MyAgro's website. I recommend it because they have a lot of information about what kind of impact they had in 2022. And it's more than just food security that they're helping provide. They also employ thousands of native Malians, and they are also in Senegal and in the Ivory Coast. So they provide employment, meaningful employment for a lot of people who would otherwise be looking for jobs. Here is the video that I wanted you to see. Anushka Ratnayake. This is a video that was done for the School World Forum. She received the prize in 2018, and I can't think really of a more deserving person. So here we go.
parce que tool bi comme dafa yaatu pour def ko fumier ba mu kii dama si doon am problème parce que damay def fii bala xam pour collecter waat fumier bu bëri pour def ko si il faut nga am 2 ans après fii su 2 ans ma tey fii day dee.
There are 2 billion people globally who are living under $2 a day, and 80% of them are smallholder farmers. Smallholder farmers essentially have a cash flow problem. They have money at harvest time, and then fast forward 9 months when it's planting time, they're cash poor again. And that's actually when they need to make their biggest investment each year into their farm to make it productive. And so they get stuck in this cycle of poverty that is really difficult to break. I was really struggling with this idea of how can we reach 1.6 billion smallholder farmers in a way that is efficient. And I was in this really rural, remote part of Rwanda And I kept going to the same little boutique over and over again, buying phone credit. And I was striking conversation with this boutique owner, and she knew the profit margins of every product she sold. She knew her customers, and the light bulb went off. Why aren't we selling seeds and fertilizer through these vendors? They have the same customer network that I'd like to serve, and the reason that vendors aren't selling seeds and fertilizer already is because there's a big upfront investment and their stores are very small. They're packed with as many products that they can sell. They don't have room to store seeds and fertilizer, but they do have room to sell scratch cards. MyAgro helps small-scale farmers save up little by little for seeds, fertilizer, and training packages that they can invest in their farm, and they save using what we call mobile layaway platform, where farmers can essentially pay for seeds and fertilizer in the same way that you or I would top up our phone with phone credit.
samay producteur su ñëwee di jënd si carte dama jël seen xaalis xoosal leen benn carte envoyé leen arrêté leen ko seen carte na joxaat leen seen carte ak seen pochette ñu dem.
We enroll farmers at harvest time when they have the most amount of cash, help them do some planning about what they want to plant the next season.
ndax amoo jafe-jafe pour dindi ñax yi wala nga gis ñax yoo xam ne ñax yu la jaaxar la waa si tool bi. si tool bi déedéet xanaa bisaab bi daal.
And then fast forward to planting time, MyAgro delivers the seeds, fertilizer, and training that she's already paid for in full.
Quand tu dois faire maintenant 3 ou 4 jours de semer avec la main, avec les semoirs, c'est une demi-journée.
Mais en donnant une formation de qualité, avec les intrants de qualité, on voit chaque année les producteurs qui travaillent avec nous, ils parviennent à augmenter leurs récoltes jusqu'à 50%, souvent jusqu'à 60%.
boobu seet bi waa dama daa bëgg a dajale lu bay xaalis doo ko dem ca marché ba doo ko mën a jënd waaye bu fekkente bi ni procès sama bay ba mu ñëwee ba tey nag moom da ngay dem di boo yoree sa téeméer dem jënd boo yoree 1000 francs dem jënd kaab noonu nga dajalee ba bis bi yàlla si seet bi.
We work in Mali and Senegal in West Africa. We work with 34,000 farmers.
taay dugub bi war ma 3 mètres te lépp ci sama mbay grâce à sama mbay quoi.
ni danfara baite mba senemge anyale no nuri ngati fura nyala nyina saru.
In the next 3 years, our plan is to expand to farmers towards our North Star of working with 1 million farmers by 2025 and helping them double their farm income to get out of poverty.
Okay, I just have a couple of more things very briefly to say. Of course, that was done in 2018. Since then, that some things have changed. COVID came, the war in Ukraine has created some problems with finding fertilizer and seed for everybody who needs it. So they are working in 3 countries now, Mali, Senegal, and the Ivory Coast. And currently they serve 300,000 smallholder farms. They no longer sell only at the boutiques. They have 6,000 roving sales agents in those 3 countries that are also earning commissions on everything they sell. So again, more jobs for more people. But still the same plan, the layaway plan using scratch cards and cell phones is very effective for them because they can find a 500 that they can put away. 80 cents doesn't seem like much to us, but for them, that's something, if it was lying around the house, it would disappear. So it's better for them to be able to invest it ahead of time. Then there's just-in-time delivery to the village. That's become a little bit more complicated. My son's explaining how they get tons of fertilizer to a village without exciting any of the local bandits. So they have to go to parking the large truck in a secure area and then just delivering over a period of a week, just small amounts of fertilizer to the various villages at a time. But they do deliver to the village when a farmer pays in full at the right time, by the time that the seeds and fertilizer are delivered, he owns it. He does not have any debt at that point. So if the crop would happen to fail, he would at least not lose the farm. He wouldn't lose anything. The training that they do amounted mostly to how to time adding the fertilizer. Don't just throw it on when you get it and hope, don't just scatter it, use it actually closer to the plant. And they do a lot of follow-up. They ask questions and help with the planning for the next year. So that was my presentation on MyAgro. I think it is transformational. I've seen what it's done for a lot of young people. But it just makes me happy to see that it's working there. So thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Anne. It was wonderful. Yeah, I just think that knowledge is power, and for us to know about it, maybe we can help share that or help it to become a bigger help over there in Africa, because it sounds like a wonderful program.
And it doesn't, there are other programs too, but this is the only one that I know of that uses the layaway plan, which is what makes it pretty unique. But certainly there are microfinance plans as well that help. Just the idea that to have these ideas of, oh, well, let's put this and this together and see if that will solve the problem. I think that's the takeaway for us here, is to keep looking for other ideas.
Yeah. Are there any questions? No questions? If not, thank you everyone for showing up and for being here. I'm hoping that this helped.
I have a question for Anne.
Okay.
Anne?
Yes.
Is there a program where people can like donate the 80 cents to, or is the process the fact that they need to come up with the 80 cents to have it? Or is there a program where somebody can donate the 80 cents so one farmer, or dollars so farmer would enhance the number of people that can support themselves?
Of course, myagro.org. On the website, there is a place for donations. They'll accept any kind of donations, large or small. There is also full disclosure of their finances on that webpage. But I can tell you they do actually use the money very carefully. The 80 cents, the 500 SEFA, that is usually the smallest amount. They have to, that's not the total amount, but that's how much to enroll. And then they can pay as they go. I do not know how much the package costs. It depends on what they want to plant. My son's job now is he has algorithms set up that he can predict a few months ahead of time, like right about now, he is predicting how much seed and how much fertilizer do they need so that they can deliver in June. And people are still paying in the meantime. So he has to predict very carefully how much seed and fertilizer to order. And Yeah. But there are very few of them working in the office or on computers. Most of the people working for Magro are actually from the countries that they work in. So my answer, the short answer is there is a place to donate on the Magro page. It's not set up exactly like Heifer International, which is also a wonderful program. Where you can, designate specifically what, but they are always happy to accept donations.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay.
Right.
If there isn't anything else, thank you again for coming. And hopefully we'll see you all in July at our conference.
Thank you, Judy.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. See you.
Thank you very much.